The journey home, close encounters. Do first loves really last forever? Or is that a myth perpetuated by pop songs, which eventually create a reality of their own? The songs establish the norm, so we magnify our feelings based on the romantic drivel. John debated this in his mind while he waited for the arriving passengers to disembark so he could board. He always thought of his first love when he was heading back to Wales. Her smile, her left shoulder, and the point where their bodies met. He remembered the happy, sad times they spent together, the times they spent in her bedroom in her mother's house, pretending to watch TV, the passionate sex and the passionate rows, and that night, laying on the beach watching the shooting stars, when she told him she was leaving him for Mark. John always found going back home strange. Berlin had been his home for nigh on 15 years. Home was the place he lived in now, not the place he'd grown up, learnt to love, learnt to drive. Home was a strange town, full of strange faces, full of ghosts of a past life he barely remembered or recognised. Each time he went home, he wandered the streets of his hometown, looking carefully at the faces of the people, wondering if they were old friends, old foes, or old lovers. He remembered Dawn, the 19-year-old girl who left him for the manager of Woolworths. He didn't have a clue what she looked like now. Maybe this time he'd bump into her. He guessed it would be nice to see her after all this time. But he'd only be back 3 days, and one of them was at the wedding, so the chances were pretty slim. He watched the last remaining passengers leave the plane and then found his boarding card so he was ready when boarding started. Dawn got off the plane and followed the exit arrows towards the baggage reclaim. She'd heard John lived in Berlin now, but that was second-hand news, so she wasn't sure. She spent the flight wondering what he looked like, how much he'd have changed, if he still occasionally thought of her like she did of him. She wondered if perhaps she might bump into him over the next 3 days, and would she even recognise him if she did? She remembered the boy with the cheeky grin kissing her under the trees of Coxmore Park, not a 40-something-year-old. And anyway, what would be the chances of bumping into him in a city the size of Berlin? She glanced at the passengers waiting to get on the flight and then took her husband's hand and wandered towards the exit.